Hello and welcome to Inspiral Out Loud, where we are exploring different ways of creating a thriving future for all sentient beings. Now, some of you might have seen a interview that I did with Paris a few weeks ago, and we were discussing money, and she has quite a different relationship with money to pretty much anyone I know. And in the interest of getting a bit of a balanced perspective, because we like to chat to lots of people in this world and get a well-rounded view of these things, we've got Chris from Wake Up and Unplug here with us today. So welcome, Chris. How are you?
I'm well, Tjoni, and thanks for having me. I did see the interview with Paris, and very interesting points of view, that's for sure.
Yeah, very, very different point of view, I must say. So I think we could all do it with a little bit of Paris magic. Now, Chris has been creating podcasts and online courses, and they're going to be available quite soon. Would you like to just give a quick description of what you're working on at the moment, Chris?
Yeah, sure, Tjoni. Well, as the name would suggest, Wake Up and Unplug is a very specific message. The logo, I hope people get to see it, is quite an interesting one. And the podcast is basically going to be focused around who and what we truly are as beings, and how we really are more of a spiritual being than an animal, but that the current system, the world throughout all of history up until this date, has focused on the animal side, the ego, the emotional side, the greedy side. So to get back and remember who we actually are, we need to awaken first. So the podcast is going to be focused on, a really large and wide subject area, in that first we need to address what the current situation is, then we need to look back and say what it used to be. Then we want to show people how and why the deception was done to us, and then people will slowly, hopefully, start to wake up. Once they start to wake up, they become self-analyzing, and they also begin to use logic a little bit better because their eyes are a little bit more open. And from there, we need to basically unplug from the current system. It's a long, tedious process. There will be courses that will be attached to that, which will go into much greater detail than the podcasts ever possibly can. But that is the objective. I believe it's time where, if we are to proceed as a species, as a sentient being, and actually evolve into what we're truly capable of, like a level 1 would be a great start, because we're at level 0 at the moment, then we need to get out of the current thought patterns. So that's basically what the podcasts are all about.
Lovely. Thank you for that. And Chris, you've got quite a varied and broad background. So looking at your details, well, I asked you here today because I know that you have a banking and finance background, but also an interest in the more life-affirming elements of our world. So Chris had 10 years working in the banking and finance industry before opting out of that to engage in a different part of actual living. Study includes all sorts of areas, including real estate, marketing, looking at law versus legal, looking at the different structures that are controlling us, and looking at the health system. And then from the positive side of things, exploring permaculture and various wellness practices such as meditation and visioning and things like that. So he comes to us with what I feel is a balanced perspective. So to move into our topic today, so like I said, we're looking into money and what the current situation around that is. So as I've mentioned previously, so we're in June now, so the whole lockdown situation is kind of easing, but nobody really knows what's going on. a lot of people in my world, and I know globally, are feeling just quite vulnerable and unsafe as far as the financial system goes. I mean, we had the financial crashes, just over a decade ago, that really obliterated a lot of people's financial well-beings. And now it seems that a lot of people are realizing just how vulnerable they are within this current situation where, you know, you've got businesses that are suddenly forced to close, people that suddenly are not allowed to go to work, finance is doing a nosedive, negative interest rates, the Treasury just took over the Fed in the US. All of these things are happening. I'm not in finance, it's not my world. I can only, you know, talk about the icing on top of the cake and the very top layer of icing on the cake. But the basic gist is that we feel generally like things are being manipulated in a way that is not to the best interest of the 99%. So, Chris, I'd love to hear your perspective on is it the banks that are actually running this show, or is it actually running a lot deeper than that?
Oh, wow.
How long have you got?
Is this limited to what, 8 hours or 10 hours?
This is the abbreviated version.
Yeah, no, I do get where you're going with that. The way you finished the sentence was quite a good one. No, the banks really haven't got much to do with this. Presidents don't have much to do with this. Royal families don't have too much to do with this, although there is some. I think, and again, my courses and podcasts will cover a lot of this, is you're looking at two separate worlds here. You're basically also looking at two different civilizations of man. There is and always has been a darker side. I mean, I don't mind referring to the Star Wars thing, but trust me, there is the good side of the Force, and there is a dark side of the Force. And the dark side always works in shadows. What we're looking at here, especially in the current day, is you're looking at a very tiny group of mostly men, I dare say, who have throughout time, and they're in no hurry, manipulated man deliberately. I mean, the whole system is designed for control. But you have to also understand that it's the whole different areas of where we're looking at is, to rattle off some of them would be money, obviously, which is our topic for today, but connected to all of that is military, media, intelligence, medical, pharmaceutical, energy, food, you name it, education. The whole lot is an entangled web of deception. So where are we today? I have a really strong feeling, because I work pretty closely with nature these days. You can feel, you can sense these things, that this is a long-term plan that has been coming for quite some time, and they've pulled the trigger. They've definitely pulled the trigger on this one, because for the first time in history that I'm aware of, especially in the last couple of 100 years, these entities, these people, have actually shown their hand, and they've shown it very obviously. I mean, I asked a very important question when this whole sham began with the COVID-19 and stuff like that, and the lockdown. Is I said, what government? Name me one government that has the power to shut down the entire world economy, or at least 66% of it, within a 2 to 3 week period. There is no government. Now, this clearly shows, because every government on the planet that was involved in the lockdowns played the same game, they played the same cards, they called the same shots, they done the same media reports, all right, within a couple of weeks. Now, that was filtered down from a higher level, and those levels are the ones we do not see.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you. And so do you feel like everything has panned out as it was supposed to? considering that there has been this long-term grand plan. And the reason that I ask that is because everything seems to be steamrolling so quickly with such a massive surge that I keep on having the image of the tail of the dying beast thrashing out in its death throes, you know. It just seems to be such a violent and sudden onset. Like, what's your thought on that? Are they where they were supposed to be? Or do you think that there's possibly some momentum coming from something that they weren't expecting, like, I don't know, internet, everybody waking up? Like, what's your thoughts in that regard?
Again, a great question. And this one, you could look at this several different ways, I suppose. I think they found an opportunity. And I think it was also a very good time for them to test the waters, so to speak. The waters are us. Now, they've taken a long time to subdue us, to tame us, to program us, and to create the perfect system where theoretically we can't survive, which is a load of bullshit, without their system. So they're counting on holding all the cards. So by testing the waters and creating a situation, they wanted to see public response. The saddest part is the public has responded in their favour. All right?
I think the whole toilet roll incident just set that off.
Oh, yeah. And I hear there's a round 2 going in Melbourne right now because of the South Korea second wave coming.
A toilet paper?
Yeah.
Thanks for the warning. I'll head down to Woolies and stock up.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll just do what we do. Just do what we do here on the farm. We use leaves.
Loose leaves, yeah.
Or rocks. Hopefully nicely rounded ones. Don't use the sharp ones, okay? But,
I was going to say, it sounds very painful.
Yeah, but no, just getting back to that. The media is an incredibly powerful tool in not only programs us, it implants beliefs into us and dependent systems into us. So have you ever not watched the news but heard everyone talking about the latest news? Everyone else is doing the talking.
Right.
So who is the media? It's not just the media. We are the media. We are the media's marketing tool.
Yeah.
One person watches it and tells 10 others.
Yeah.
So this is all part of their agenda of planning, by the way, and programming, is that they actually get us to spread their own crap around. And they're doing it successfully. So
and fight each other over it as well.
Oh, absolutely they do. Absolutely do. I mean, and these guys here, they must be, seriously pissing themselves laughing at what some of these people are doing and how they're reacting. But, you know, in saying that, you must feel for the people, because the people have been so deceived and so programmed they don't know anything else anymore. And this didn't occur. This started a couple of thousand years ago, but it takes that long to take that out of man. There's an old saying, and it's a serious objective of theirs. It was written that they wanted to own the mind, the body, and the soul of man. Now, in the last couple of 100 years or so, they've done that, because the body belongs to the state.
Yeah.
Okay, through the birth certificate and all that kind of crap.
Yeah.
The mind, but usually belongs to the church. So they've already had that through whichever church you believe. And the last objective is to gather the soul of man, to own the soul of man. And you can only do that when man has forgotten who and what he and she is. If they forget who they are, bloody oath you can own the soul of man.
Yeah.
Because you're now taming a dumbed down animal. A gentleman by the name of Jordan Maxwell once said, he said, "We didn't evolve from ape, we're devolving into it."
Touché.
And to give you just to let you know, that's what these people have been preying on. that kind of subduing.
And subduing through this, you know, constant feeding in of entertainment and, you know, all of those sorts of things. You know, I've been told very strongly that this is why coming back to self, coming back to the present, just shutting out from the noise, at least for a chunk of the day, is so important. Because when we're out there in cyber world, interacting, engaging, getting pissed off, sparking up our anger, all of that kind of stuff, we're disengaged from our own spirit. But by coming back into presence, we're inhabiting ourselves again, which means that the possibility and opportunity for external sources to actually hijack the spirit, to hijack the soul, are eliminated. If we're in it, nobody else can get in, you know? Yeah.
Absolutely. Have you ever heard of a guy called Jiddu Krishnamurti?
Yes.
Yeah. One of my favourite sayings of all time is he basically wrote, "It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society."
It's one of my favourites.
And what is a profoundly sick society is a society that has been so programmed into the animal, the ego, and that the biggest weapon to utilize that is your subject. It's called money.
Mm. Yeah.
The definition of consumer is a destroyer. When you consume something, you destroy it.
Mm.
And the world is full of consumers. Yeah. And that is all money. Having a good old laugh.
You got to laugh or you cry, right?
Oh, it's not all bad news. There is good news coming up, but
there is.
You know, just to explain what's going on right now, it's a sad situation. It's very dangerous. It's a very, very dangerous situation. And just before I do forget, Tony, it's also important to note that these people, these entities are playing an incredibly dangerous game. I'll give them one thing. I'll give them a couple of things. They created a system that was so convincing that everyone bought it.
Yeah.
The ones that didn't buy it were either killed or beat up and, or, you know, goodbye, you're off the planet, or you're off to fend for yourself.
Yeah.
But so they created a perfect prison planet, but they also, when they say something, they do it. The reason we're in such a big pickle right now is because a lot of us know what's going on, but we're not actioning it. We're not coming together to action it. I've been and learned from a great many deal of wonderful men and women who have a good thorough knowledge of history, events, dates, how the system works, how that cog works in the first place, but they're all scattered around in different pockets. What we need is all those different pockets to come together as one, especially in this day and time right now. It's not happening. I hope to be able to achieve that through the podcast, because I'll be calling on people and groups to, you know, just don't worry about your little differences. Don't worry about little quarrels about who done the birth certificate, where did it originate from. It doesn't matter. We know what it is. But the point is, right now, if we don't step up in action, they're going to win. They're going to get away with this shit.
Yeah. And I agree with you. And I think a really important thing, and this is part of the reason for having these conversations, is not only to know what we're fighting against, but also to know what we're fighting for. And this, to me, is where exploring this kind of existence, exploring all of these different things, is actually quite empowering, because it makes me realize why things haven't been working. It's not just because life is hard or because I'm an idiot or, you know, any of the neuroses and things that play around. It's because we're actually in a broken system. And so for me, it's far easier to envisage a thriving future, knowing that our current values are by design and that we do have a way to step outside of it. So I'm very excited about more of your work coming out, especially in that regard. Now, so still within this system, how do you feel that the current financial system is actually affecting people's health And do you think that that is by design?
Absolutely, it's by design. I mean, the COVID was a good release button, but it is by no means anything at all. There's enough statistics out there, there's enough people out there, there's and plenty of microbiologists who are confirming this is what, a mild cold at best. The damage is with isolation, face masks and lockdown. This is where the dangers really are. By the way, the term lockdown is a cracker. I love it. Why did they choose the term lockdown? It's a goddamn prison term. It's when prisoners get locked up in their cells. You know, they're trying to tell us something there or what. But look, we're just like any other animal in flesh in that we have a fight or flight mode. Now, most animals can sustain short bursts of fight or flight, sorry. We're not, no mammal is designed to be in fight or flight mode for months.
Yeah.
That does nothing but ruin and destroy your immune system. It also destroys your mind because you can literally go nuts, especially if you're already a focused consumer. In other words, you are programmed by them and you can't see what's going on. Can you imagine what it's doing to the people that are so indoctrinated into that system to then basically take away their toys and their lifestyle of consumerism and usage and useless eating? I've heard the term useless eaters many times, and I hate to say this, but a lot of them are. But this is something we can fix. This is something we fix. But yeah, for health-wise, I mean, shocking. I didn't want to talk about the masks. There's been enough talking about the masks to know that the protein molecule virus can go in and out of that thing all day long. It does nothing except breed more bacterial viral stuff in the mask itself, which goes back in your lungs, again, destroying your immune system.
Yeah, I guess
By
as
the
far
way,
as health goes, I'm thinking more of this financial system of enslavement and how that in particular affects people's health, just being from in that state of stress all the time.
Well, yeah, I mean, the effects of stress are immense. I think it's been said that 85% of your physical health comes from your mental well-being. So, and I mean, are you aware that if you have a totally healthy body with a 100% healthy immune system, along with that a very healthy mind, that it's impossible to even contract the virus, like a flu virus or a cancer for that matter? It's impossible. So the only way to do that, I mean, you put people under financial stress where they're starting to lose houses and businesses. That's not just their livelihood gone. It's possibly their entire everything gone. What are the statistics coming out of America now? Approaching 40 million out of a job were homeless.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge percentage of the population. And if we're correct, the game's just begun. So what does this kind of a situation do for people? It ruins them. And again, this is why we need to focus so hard on, if I'm correct where this conversation is going to go, you'll be asking me this question, I'll be answering it later, is what can we do to alleviate the pain? Well, there is a lot we can do for that. Yeah, absolutely there is. But people need to wake up and become realistic again.
For sure. So then let's look at how all of this has been even able to unfold as it has. You know, how is it being controlled? How have the powers that be been getting away with this for so long? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's called threatening people's lives. In the last couple of 100 years since the Industrial Revolution, there's been a real pick-up and escalation of everything. How are they getting away with it on multiple different levels? Again, it comes down to the programming. There's a very old saying. I mean, this saying is so old. It was said by Aristotle in roughly 350 BC and adopted by the Jesuits. And it's basically saying, give me the child for the first 7 years and I'll give you the man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We know that from our psychology. Yeah.
Well, but the implications and the real deep meaning of that are insane. It basically means as soon as you're born and your mother, because your mother's already been programmed as well, is programming that child and so is your father, and then so is kindergarten school or preschool or whatever the children are going to. The programming is there because the brain is not complete until the age of 7. It's a sponge absorbing everything. All right. When you can get people to that stage where you've already got them conditioned by the age of 7, the rest is easy.
They can't even see their chains.
Can't.
Yeah.
And it's going to get worse, obviously.
Mm.
You know, so they operate from that angle. They operate through media, obviously, clearly through tablets, through any little electronic device and TV and whatever others show. But then, if you remember, I mentioned several arms like money, media, military intelligence, pharmaceutical, medical, energy, education, all this kind of stuff. They have little plants at the top layers of each one of these institutions, if you like, because that's what they are, or cartels. I like to personally call them cartels. And if every single one of those has been infiltrated and dominated and controlled, then all the information, all the teachings, all the resources are coming through those higher channels, which we never get to see. Each one of them is designed to play at the manipulation of man.
And because it's so complete, there's no contrast.
Yeah.
Because everything's playing the same game. Mm.
Yeah, and they've basically, I mean, the other brilliance of what they've done, as evil as it is I like to refer to it as a mirror or a pond. Is when you look at your own reflection. You know, you have nature and you flippo it. You totally flippo it. But they've done the same thing. As per the examples right now with different cartels, and then also as a child coming up to the age of 7, you've heard the biblical term as above, as below. Well, they're the above and we're the below. Mm. So it's happening from there to there, all the way down, all the way through and everything in between. And that is why I keep saying there is no escape from this particular system. It needs to be replaced. It is so broken. If we try to fix it, we're going to spend 1,000 years trying to fix something that's unfixable.
Yeah. And so then my next question is, because I know that, well, I've just recently started exploring the difference between lawful and legal, thanks to Mars that keeps throwing all of these breadcrumbs at me saying, follow this path, follow this path. And is this lawful? And, you know, has the legal system actually altered the way that we do things without even knowing that we're playing in a game that we don't need to play in?
Again, absolutely. It comes down to the 180-degree flippo. Lawful refers to law and primarily laws of nature. All valid law is natural law, and any law that man creates must align with natural law. If it doesn't, it can't be law. So they create a fictional system, and it's in many ways it's actually unnecessary evil, because if you look at let's go back to the Roman days when there was a crime committed, they used to have the actors reenact the scene of the crime. Yeah. Well, these were fictional characters in play. What a great little concept. So you create a fictional little world to recreate the actual event. And that can be manipulated and played out however you like, depending on your witnesses and who's playing whatever role. Even in the Shakespearean days, he said it so clearly and no one read it. He basically said all the world is a stage. We're just merely players. I mean, these people don't say stuff like this for no reason. So I think it's Sir Lord Blackstone's on Blackstone's commentaries.
Yeah.
He's literally the father of English law. He basically stated, he said, everyone has the right to person. Right. You're allowed to have one. Mm-hmm. You're allowed to have one. So that whole scenario, that whole thing is a creation. Does any of it align with natural law? Not really. So they had to bring out the term legal, statute, Actors Act, you know.
To deal with all the big things of the planet.
yeah, this is not true law. You can have laws that are corporate law. You can have corporate laws and bylaws by all means, but that has nothing to do with true law. It has everything got to do with corporate law, right?
Yeah.
So therefore, the term legal comes in so heavily because they play in a legalized world in a legalese language. So the entire language is different to ours. The definitions are different to ours. So yeah, so what is the difference between the two? One's an abomination, it's evil, it's criminal. It's full of deception and lies, and yet it's all focused on, sorry to say, the redemption and forgiveness of sins.
Is it?
You know, I mean, well, whenever people receive penalty notices all the time, don't they?
Yeah.
Well, penalty comes from penance.
Right.
You're paying for your sins.
Okay.
Yeah. And remember I said they want to own the soul of man, but they already own the mind and the body.
Yeah.
Well, the mind is the church. You've given yourself, your mind, to the church, so you are subject to penance.
Right. Okay. Interesting. And how far, do you know how far back this goes, and why is it important for us to actually have some kind of grasp, at least of our basic history? How does it inform our current scenario?
Goes back a very long way, several thousand years. But I believe possibly, I mean, someone might argue with me on this one, and they may be valid. I tend to think calendars have got so much to do with it. I mean, how long has our race been around, our species, for, you know, however many thousands of years? But our history, we also, sorry, my apologies, we seem to have a starting calendar of 2020 years ago. What was at zero, and everything was before, so before Christ and Adami calendars. That calendar is your fictitious world. This is the system already starting to play out. But even before that time, somebody had to think of that event to create that event. So it goes back even further than that. It goes back, Tjoni, it really goes back to the time where the priests and the ancients, I mean, we seriously didn't come from ape. We were very smart from day one. For a guy like Aristotle to say, give me the child for the first 7 years and I'll give you the man, it shows you how much they knew about the mind of man 2,500 years ago, right? But there was another side of that coin of somebody at the darker side, a more controlling side, says, well, people are gullible, people are happy, people are loving, and people seem to get on, and people are free. And this kind of being over here said, that's the one being we can't control. We can't control that being in that free state. The only way to control it is to put a pressure on it, to force it to come into our system so we can then start controlling that creature. You see how that plays out?
Yeah.
But you can't convert it overnight. This takes generation after generation after generation.
Yeah.
So our job, my job, your job, is to bring people back to that history of where that moment was. What did they do with all the priests? They slaughtered them. What did they do with all the peaceful people? They slaughtered them. Why? Because they were a threat. Because anything that is free, they cannot control. Our job is to bring people back to knowing who and what they truly are, the freedoms that we inherently have the right to. We are that. And once people start realizing that, that's when things really going to start waking up. And that's when they lose control. They do lose control. They cannot control that. One of the strongest forces in the human species in the universe is free will. They can't control it.
Indeed. And you just mentioned a calendar before, which is interesting because I was just thinking about this the other day. I know that things like language has been constructed deliberately to keep us enslaved, but I was also wondering if calendars have been generated over the same lines, because they've been shifted to get us out of alignment with the natural cycles in the world. Is that something that you know about or have any commentary on?
A little bit, but calendars are very deliberate. For example, the Gregorian calendar is purely for us. It's not for them. They don't even use a Gregorian calendar. They use something else. And time is a key. You know, time is a subject we could go into all on its own. But one thing I can tell you about time is they are fully aware of the human being, the condition of the being, the mind of the being, that loves nothing more than to fit the dots, put the dots together into a pattern of flowingness. So people are addicted to time.
Yeah.
In man's natural state, no one gives a shit about time. You ask me any tribe member that lives in some tribe what age he or she is, and what's happening and what time is it right now. You're going to look up the sun and say, well, it's roughly eating time. That's about it. How old are you? I don't know. What is age? You know? So time is something very much, but again, that is for a whole different conversation. I could do a lot on time. I could do a lot on time and calendars.
Oh, okay. We might have to do another session on that then. So then coming back to the financial system, there's also been talk for some time now of a potential global reset of the entire financial system. And I've heard varying reports on whether it's a good or bad thing. From myself, just feeling into it, I'm kind of sitting on both sides of the fence. I don't quite have a judgment yet. What are your thoughts on a global reset, if it's imminent, and what effect that could have on us?
Global reset, a very real possibility. Again, I mean, Trumpy, I'm not a big fan of any politician by any means, but this guy does have his finger on the pulse. He's pretty awake. I think he's got Q in his ear. I'm not sure. And Q is pretty okay.
I heard that Trump is partly Q.
Well,
that is one of the 800. We'll find out one day.
I really don't know. But if they bring out, look, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, I mean, I personally believe there's going to be a lot of phases. We've only just scratched the surface right now with if they're going to play hard. What would happen is the US dollar would collapse. It has to eventually, because he can only print so much money. But the IMF actually has their own printing press, and I can't remember the name of the currency, but it is a global currency. It has been used before, and that would be a global currency, which we, I don't know. I think that's quite a dangerous move to go down that route. But right now, I do know that things such as gold and silver are being bought up very carefully. It's still on a bit of a hush at the moment, but they don't want to mass buy it because they're going to drive up the prices way too much. But the Chinese have bought so much of it already. No, look. At the end of the day, global reset or not, you're still looking at that system. And I think I've looked at this system long and hard for coming up on 20 years, and there is no escape from that system. This system has to be torn down and rewritten. It has to be. If you try to salvage it or repair or rebuild it, there is so much corruption and so many broken pieces in all the other different cartel areas. They're all linked. The whole thing's linked. So it's going to be really, really difficult. And look, for man to, again, progress as a species and really evolve to a decent evolution of conscious being, ideally you wouldn't have a thing called money. It's not even necessary. But if you were to have a thing called money, I don't believe in a scientist or a brain surgeon getting paid $750,000 a year, and a poor woman or a man working in an aged care clinic, caring for the elderly, doing their backs in, working like dogs, getting paid $22 an hour. I think if you're going to use money, put everyone on the same wage. So I'd like to see this scientist or brain surgeon get away with someone not picking up his rubbish every week.
Yeah, and that has naturally led us, thank you very much, on into how can we actually do it better. And that I had that conversation with Mars a little while ago about evening out exactly how much we are getting paid. And my response was, on a level, I absolutely get that. But then my other thought is, what if someone has given up their monetary entitlement in order to study for 5 or 10 years? Then don't they need to earn more in order to be able to cover those expenses? But then if we had a system where people got paid to study, we could iron that out. So those people are working and those people are busy, you know, upskilling themselves so they can be in service. So I think if we could generate that kind of system, then we could definitely create a more fair way of being.
Well, yeah. You have to realize spiritually we're all the same. In the marketplace, we're definitely not, and that is the problem. It's a marketplace. It's a world of business. It's a world of money. That's all it is. I mean, I've heard the saying. We've all used the same term. You know, nobody likes a car salesman or a real estate agent, salesman or whatever. Look. Let's look at it honestly. Everyone's a salesman. Your local GP is a salesman. Your dentist is a salesman. Everyone's a salesman because you have to sell something so you can get the income. Yeah?
Yeah.
This whole system is based on money and nothing but money. The problem with it is it splits everyone. It splits everyone from, I mean, you have a child in Africa or wherever they are, it doesn't matter where they are, who never has an opportunity but has the mind of a genius and never has the opportunity to express it. I mean, come on. And you get morons like Bill Gates that's worth literally trillions that could feed the entire planet for the next 50 years and won't do it.
Let's not even go there. It'll just make me sad.
Well, we're talking about the money. We're talking about the money, right? And yeah. So, I mean, yeah, I'll stop it there. You know, I could go deep and I'll just rattle on. So you go for it.
So let's look at how, well, actually, before we go into that, is there anything else that you do want to touch on in the realm of control and manipulation before we do move on into the next bit?
Yeah, I do. Do you mind if I touch right now? I hope if I'm intruding on your next bit, let me know.
No, all good.
Can we touch on how to reduce your burden, how to reduce your exposure to it?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. The answer really is very simple. Go back to simplicity. As you mentioned, I was in the finance industry for 10 odd years, whatever it was. And I was just like everybody else. I got caught up in the moment. I got caught up in the money. I got caught up in the good times and good meals and restaurants, buying property and gaining wealth. The big difference between me and some of the businessmen that I met along the way, however, was massive. Whenever I achieved, I always tried to bring people with me, my teams. I wanted everyone to succeed and everyone to do well. 90% of the business world does nothing but stomp on everything in its way. It destroys everything in its way just so they can get to the top, and they don't give a hoot about people. All right? So when I decided to leave that system, I literally switched off as hard as I could. And it was hard to put the brakes on, but I decided to do it. And I thought, what's the first move? What is the first move? I thought, okay, time out. Let's just do a time out. And I did. I sat with nature. I looked at trees. I played, and I didn't just play with my dog. I looked that dog in the eye. I looked a horse in the eye. I looked at animals in the eye. I watched birds fly. I listened to the sounds. I listened to the sounds of birds, water, wind, rain, felt the sun, you name it. And when you do that for quite some time, you gain a little bit of clarity. And what you decide, or what I decided to do from there is, I'm so dependent, I'm so hooked into their system. How do I get out of it? And I figured the only way to do it is to stop using it. By the way, it's also, this is the ultimate answer into bringing down that entire system, is to stop using it. And you stop using it in the very basic ways. Do you eat fish fingers and macas? Stop it. Do you eat fresh fresh fish, fresh fruit and vegetables, great. However, the stuff that they're selling you is not fresh anymore. You need to look into this. So I started looking at numbers. I started looking at ingredients. I started looking at percentages. And I found nothing but a toxic waste dump in the food that we were eating, which then led me to, how do I reduce it even further? I thought, well, okay, well, let's stop buying glazed telephone. A mobile telephone is a mobile telephone for a reason. It's still called a telephone. Now it's a walking computer and shopping mall. It's no longer a telephone. I don't need a new phone. Give me an old phone. There's something that makes phone calls. I'm happy. Stop watching the TV as much. I'm not saying stop watching it altogether. Just stop watching it. Reduce it. If you can reduce watching TV by 1 hour, it gives you 1 hour extra here to think of something else. Yeah? So how do we do it? We start taking away the things that we really, really don't need. You know, there's an old saying in sales, people never buy what they need, they only buy what they want.
Yeah.
How true. But it needs to be the other way around. When people need to buy what they need, not what they want.
Well, I was always told you sell people what they want, but give them what they need.
So if you can do that, is what I plan to, what I do and what you do, then you're doing the right thing, because you're actually giving them what they think they want by sleeping in what they actually really need in the back door, which is great.
Yeah. And like I was told, you know, as far as say corporate workshops in yoga and stuff like that, I was told you don't sell them yoga, you sell them leadership and wellness, and then they'll buy the yoga and they'll buy the art classes and they'll buy all of the things, as long as you give them leadership and wellness skills. So there's a way for it to provide for everyone. So I'm curious then, with your exploration into nature, how did that inspire you or inform your view of the current system of money?
Well, this again is key to what we originally are supposed to be as man, and we are 85 or 80% spiritual, and then we are man, flesh, man, egotistical. Well, they have preyed on that side. When you connect, and I mean truly connect, if you can touch a tree and feel it, and you can't do this overnight, that takes practice. If you can seriously communicate with an animal, you can feel the love of that animal. What greater joy is there? I mean, you can give me all the Apple iPads in the world and ask me to swap it for my pet dog or my horse or my cow, even, I'll say no. You can keep your bloody phone. Why? Because there is zero stress and 100% fulfillment. It energizes you. It connects you to everything that's there, absolutely everything. And there are no bills there. There are no shopping malls in that world. Yeah?
Yeah.
You step over here and all of a sudden you're in with the clutter. And the more clutter you've got, the more stacking you're doing, the more of a mess that you're in. This is why you need to unclutter and unstack. So, if anyone, I mean, if you stepped from the natural world into the system and only bought one item, it's called a mobile phone, immediately you have a trail of all this bullshit that goes with it, because yes, I have a phone. I'm going to make a phone call. We just got charged money. Now you have to get on a plan and pay a bill. How do I do that? All of a sudden now I've got to get a job to pay for the bloody phone. And then bing, you're up and running. Right? This is not what people need to live and be happy and thrive. They don't need it. It's a luxury, sure. But I'll tell you another important thing. We can have all of those toys. We can have all the technology, and I'm not against science or technology. In fact, I'm all for it. The problem is, ever since day one, when all this stuff was invented, they weaponized everything.
Yeah.
That's the problem. They weaponized it. Everything from food to water to high technology. If man can evolve without the weaponization and looks at the benefit to humanity and the planet and all living things, there's nothing wrong with technology.
Yeah, I agree. And we've had many discussions on Inspiral Out Loud about the weaponization of all sorts of different areas. It's quite phenomenal. And I know that you have a keen interest in permaculture. one of the things I love in permaculture is the idea of capital, and that, you know, financial capital is only one tiny little bit of quite a big pie. And so, you know, with generating collaborative business projects, I've been looking at, you know, how can you bring in all forms of capital, you know, all of the wisdom and the networks and the land and the tools and the materials and the stories and the spiritual connections. You know, we've got so much resource between us, and when we can access those bits directly without the speed humps and roadblocks of finances holding us away from those, then surely we can generate more effective and efficient avenues of creating really good stuff together. In your opinion, how do permaculture principles apply to finances and money and all of that stuff?
I'll get your imagination going. Play a scenario with me. You live in the suburbs or you live in the city, doesn't really matter where you live in a street, you have neighbours, however long your street is. You go and talk to all of your neighbours, and I wouldn't know anymore because I live in a farm these days, but in the old days, I think you still have it. You have a green bin where you put your green waste. Yeah? Yep. Still exists?
Yeah.
Okay, I'd be talking to all of my neighbours saying, don't throw it away, I'll take it all. All right, but while I'm at it, I would be talking, and your neighbour might say, well, why do you want it? Well, I'm going to be composting because I'm going to be building a veggie patch. You're interested in that kind of stuff, and you find out not everyone's going to be, but you might find in a street of 50 or more houses that 6 or 8 people might be interested in the concept of a veggie patch. Let's do a veggie patch. How about you grow tomatoes, Tony, and I'll grow some lettuces. We'll get Bob down there to grow some zucchinis or some cucumbers or some onions or whatever. And everyone starts doing their own little thing, and you rotate that around each season so your soils stay fresh. No one's throwing away green waste anymore. We're composting everything. You can get a couple of chooks. Is so simple. I mean, chooks are one of the most beautiful animals on the planet because, yes, you can eat it for meat. We don't. We just like the eggs and the manure. But even the feathers, if you were to process the chicken for a roast chicken, at least you're getting real chicken. But then they're starting to use chicken feathers now for pillows, for down and stuff like that. So yes, you could create your own economy within your own street, and it'd be eating real food taken straight off the damn plant, because most of the nutrient is straight off when it still has a living force, the life force in it, not when it's been sitting on a shelf for 3 months or in a freezer for 9 months. So how do you create economy? I think we just did.
Yep, absolutely. That's how it started, isn't it?
Simple one. But if you can get enough people to play that ball game and even make your own, you have to buy your own flour and stuff, make your bread, then you have a living little community that can transfer without any money whatsoever, straight swaps. And all of a sudden increase their health while they're at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And increase friendships and increase connection. And you know, I used to live on a suburban block, but a decent sized. It was like 1.5 acres, and we had tons of edible weeds. So I didn't buy any greens. We would just live off all the local like red dock and dandelion and stuff like that, and use it as spinach. And I noticed eating that every day, both me and my partner at the time, physiologically, we actually started to shift. And after about a week of this, my partner just said, this is weird, I feel really different. And it's like, yeah, because we're getting our energy out of the same ground that we're living on. It's a vastly different relationship to what we're consuming when it comes from so close. So yeah, I'm with you on that one. And Chris, do you see us being able to move beyond the need for actual currency? I mean, for me, I see it as we've still got a lot of unconditioning to do, and, you know, removing a lot of fear and neuroses around needing to bank and hoard and all of that kind of stuff. But do you see us getting to that point where we might be able to do away with it altogether?
Yes, but I do believe that's still some time away. It's a massive undoing. Yeah, I do see it. I see that's really probably the only way that man's going to move forward as a species and go universal. And if there's any other guys out there that want to talk to us, that's the only way they're going to talk to us. But it's all baby steps. It's all going back. See, we've been asleep. The people have been asleep for so long. We need to wake up first. I just believe it's so critical. And the only way we're going to do that is going back to simplicity. Going through your daily routine of starting to realize what is really only required. I need clothing, I need shelter, I need healthy food, I need good relationships, and I need a clear mind. I need to unclutter my mind, get rid of all the rubbish that's in your life that is causing the clutter and the stress. Be grateful. Every day, be grateful for something in your life. Be grateful that your heart's beating. It's the one thing that keeps you alive. I mean, people always say, oh, he died of cancer. No, he didn't. No one dies of cancer. No one dies of anything. There's only one way to die: heart failure. There's only one way. Something else might have brought that on, but there's only one way to die. Your heart stops. As long as your heart is ticking, be grateful that it's ticking. As long as you're breathing, be happy. Look at, you've heard me say this one before, where focus goes, energy flows. I wish your viewers will take that in, because if you focus on the crap that's going on, your energy is going to flow straight towards that, and all you're doing is feeding the beast. You're only feeding it if you focus on it. If you focus on some good, that's exactly where your energy is going to go. So it really is winding everything back first before we can even start considering a moneyless society. And the only way we're going to do that is to literally, we're going to grind this beast to a halt by not requiring it so much. But we're still going to require, man. I mean, people, look, I still love a cup of coffee. I can't grow a coffee plant to eat my life dependent on it, right? So I still need things. But we can reduce consumption massively. And we have to start there. But yeah, moneyless in the future, I think that's the only way.
I'd just like to add to your comment about feeding the beast, because I had an interesting insight from Spirit about that a couple of weeks ago. And she was saying, if you can imagine, say our cells, for instance, they have, receptors for oxygen, say, so that they're able to receive oxygen. Well, she said that, the beasts that live on darkness, they only have receptors to be able to actually receive darkness. So if you send them love, they actually can't feed from that. So she said that, literally things like, engaging in all the fights and anger and all of that kind of stuff is literally generating that dark energy that is literally energetically feeding those beasts. And that, we absolutely need to be able to step aside in love and just to be able to project that out. And it's not to keep our head in the sand, but to be able to witness what is playing out on a global stage and just go, okay, that's just a symptom of a massive shift, and just still be able to send that love out even to the so-called monsters and even to the so-called unlovables, and just see it as a symptom of a time that we are now transitioning out of. So I feel like that's one of the most important bits of our work that we can do as we move forward. And is there anything else that you'd like to add, just in general, as to what we can actually do while we are still functioning within the realms of money?
Only just touching back on, look, I would encourage everyone, well, again, going back to, stop fueling, stop feeding the beast. You're fueling it. You're putting fuel on a fire if you focus on it or put emotions on it. I would encourage people to stop using emotion too much. This whole system feeds, again, on our emotional state. If you hit a really good meditation, for example, the emotion tends to go and logic tends to kick in. Your gut instinct kicks in a little bit more. Yeah. And you can put it this way: you can think a lot clearer if you're in a non-emotional state. The emotion spurs an action. A logical, unemotional state does not. It just looks at the situation as it is and then determines the course of action of how to proceed. Every decision in your life is always two roads. We all bugger up. We all make mistakes. But if you can somehow always get back onto the good side of that road, you're looking okay. So right now, I would be encouraging people to reduce the dependence, and it is a dependence on the system, to reduce it. We are still going to need it for some time, but reduce it, to reduce the clutter in their own lives. If people, for example, have mortgages or investment properties, I've been in the investment property game, and I made sure of one important thing. I never cross-collateralized an investment property with my own house. The home must be standalone. So if your mortgages fail, they can't take your own home. If I was an investor right now, I would ensure that that was the case. And if it wasn't, I would sell one of the investment properties to make sure it is the case. Because otherwise you're overcapitalized. You're too deep. You're in too deep in a failing economy.
Yeah.
If you have personal loans, you have credit cards. I mean, sure, some people just can't get out of them right now. Sometimes, don't be afraid. Look, in the years, I'm coming up on 60 years of age. I've been bankrupt twice. Do I give a shit? I don't give a shit about it. One of the times I openly declared to God, I said, this is a great way to get rid of all the junk. Get rid of it. So I just said, I'm bankrupt, take it. I don't give a shit what you take. Didn't hurt me. I didn't care. It's not a scary thing. If you're in a deep hole, bankrupt yourself. Let them have it. Who cares? They can't take your bed. They can't take your car if you have a job. They can't take your fridge. They can't take your lounge. These are necessities of life. They can't take that crap. They can only take pleasures. You know, TV sets, mobile phones, if there's any money in that kind of crap anyway, but anything of value, a laptop, computer, sure, they can take all that. They can't take the necessities of life. They can't do it.
Yeah.
Right? So reduce your dependence on the system is the key message for this one. Reduce your dependence on money and start looking at a little step-by-step, create yourself a program. And I mean, if people want to email me, they can, or you can teach them yourself, is a step-by-step program of reduce something every week. Just reduce a little bit by little bit. You can't do this in one hit. Took me several years to get to where I am right now, but I don't even need them.
That is a gradual process.
Yeah, even if they cut off my coffee. So what? I don't get coffee. I'll think of something else. You know, I've got a eucalyptus plant out there, a proper eucalyptus plant, which you just take one leaf, a little bit of honey and water, and you got tea.
Nice. Nice work. As long as they can't take your kettle, you'll be okay.
Fire.
So just looking forwards then, so I know a lot of people are interested in crypto as a way of sort of still being able to play in the field of commerce, I guess, without working with actual fiat money. What's your opinion on crypto?
It's not in what I think. I've listened to some really wealthy people and some really key ex-Wall Street players and stuff like that. All crypto, from what I'm hearing from these guys, is useless except for Bitcoin. Bitcoin does have value. It does have a future. Nobody knows exactly which way it's going to play out on that one. But right now in this world, it is a useful instrument and it does have value. But if you're getting sold all these others, ethers and whatever else they're called, don't. They'll never take off. They do not have the blockchain technology that Bitcoin does have, and they'll never get the support. Bitcoin now, I believe, is even being used and is being accepted by some financial institutions, including banks. So
yeah,
yes.
Right. And do you see any other forms of currency coming up in the pipeline beyond Bitcoin that might be helpful in any way, shape or form?
Not at this point in time, but you have to understand that people can always create your own currency. We, the people, can create anything that we want.
Yeah.
What we lack is the number, not the numbers. If we had thousands of people on each and every continent or country, and each has a product line or a knowledge base, you can sell knowledge. Knowledge is a new learning tool, by the way. The education system's dead. But teaching knowledge online to people, and if you had your own currency, you could charge whatever you wanted for it. You know, there is a group on this planet, which I'm aware of, and you're aware of, which has the full ability to create its own currency, and it's actually a sovereign entity. It's a principality.
Yeah.
They have the ultimate ability, because it is a sovereign, to create their own currency. Again, what's missing are the numbers of people willing to trade within that currency to accept the goods or services that can be associated with it.
Yeah.
The more we get people to unplug and play on this level, put it this way, you remember we were talking about permaculture, and we were talking about the street, and everyone grows a different thing or provides a service. You might, instead of growing the tomato or the vegetables, cucumber, you might be a carpenter or a brickie or a welder or a mechanic. And you can trade all that. You can literally create your own currency, call it whatever you like, a monitor, and off you go. You're trading, but it's only acceptable within that week.
And that's what I was wanting to do within Spiral, to just create that central space where people can trade goods and services with each other in a really easy way. So yeah, I've looked into a lot of, like Let System and all of those kind of things. For ways to potentially do it. I haven't found a platform I particularly like yet, but maybe that's on its way. And so
a couple of things.
Yeah.
Background, we are working in regards to currency. I just can't much yet. There is something potential.
Yeah, perfect. And last question: how can people generate a better mindset around currency, around trade, around just functioning with each other, around exchange?
I believe the value is within yourself. If you hold a job, great. But I would also encourage people to start looking at alternative ways to generate money. Let's call it money. It is money at the end of the day. But to become more self-sufficient, it's very important that people become self-accountable and self-governing. Now, there's several ways to do that, and that is to own your own life. And how do you own your own life? You run your own show. How do you run your own show? You run your own business. Again, my courses will teach a lot in regards to how you can do that. The knowledge industry is a huge one. It really is. I mean, you can make little clay pots and candles all you like. It's not going to pay a mortgage, and it's not going to feed and pay the bills too much. Lovely thought for markets, lovely thought for exchange. Not a long-term clear strategy for paying off debt. What people don't understand is that there's more in their head than what they realize. Everyone's good at something. And if you're good at something, that is teachable. And people will want it. I ask you a question. I have no idea what age you are. I'm not about to ask you. But if you could look at a Tjoni 20 years ago, yourself 20 years ago, do you think you could teach that young Tjoni something? And would that young Tjoni benefit?
Absolutely. She could probably teach me as well.
Would young Tjoni probably pay for that to save 20 years of her life if she could learn it in 6 months?
Oh, yeah.
So everybody has something, and I don't even know it.
Yeah.
And that is within ourselves.
So true. So, Chris, Wake Up and Unplug is your upcoming business that you're almost ready to release. So how can people find you if they would like to engage in your upcoming podcasts and course offerings?
At this point in time, there's only one way, because we're still working on whether I go funnels or website. But so right now it's only via an email address, and that's Chris, CHRIS, at Mader, MADER, .global.
Perfect, thank you. And I might even invite people at home, if you're watching this on YouTube or BitChute, wherever you are, also to potentially just leave a message in the comments if you're keen to stay updated. So maybe we can message them that way as well. But we'll put Chris's email in the description of this video as well, so that you can find each other. And last question for today, how are you aiming to help sentience thrive in the future?
As per my excellent logo there, Wake Up and Unplug, it's a two-step process. We need to wake people up. How do I plan on doing it? Podcasts is a great way. Online courses is a great way. Spreading the word is a great way. Ebooks is a great way. Online marketing, I've done enough research on the online marketing now where you can, through social media platforms and stuff like that. The objective for me is never focus on the money, focus on the people. If I can deliver a service to people where it's of value, then I've done something good and I can sleep well at night. And I believe that people will donate or pay for something down the track, especially when I can save them tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars in doing it for a small fee. Courses cost time, they cost money and investment to create them. I have no intentions of being rude about any of the costs. They're going to be very cheap, very, very affordable. But now is the time to get the word out. If we can't wake people up, and if we can't get people to action, like I said before, there's a lot of awake people, but no one's actioning it. I really want to try to connect more. I've got several contacts. I want to contact them, pull them together. Instead of staying little islands, we need to become a land mass. And when we have that land mass, then we move. They mobilize very quickly. They action very quickly. We need to do the same.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear you on that one. We're definitely on the same page. Well, thanks so much for joining me today, Chris. It's been an enlightening pleasure.
Vice versa, Tjoni, and thanks for having me.
My pleasure. And to all of you at home, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, which of course you did, or you wouldn't still be listening, please press the subscribe button, like this video, send us a comment. And if you would like to subscribe to Inspiral Out Loud, you can email me at info@in-spiral.org. So thanks again for watching, and till next time, my friends, be well and keep dreaming the good dream. Ciao for now.